today marks the somber anniversary of the death of Malcolm X. Malcolm, I always like to talk about Malcolm on my show because of how significantly he impacted my life personally. Dr. King has certainly influenced my life as I discover more about King and I discover more about who he was above and beyond the whitewashed King and the American accepted, the generally accepted version of Dr. King. But Malcolm was always despised by America and always rejected by America and always seen as a threat to America. And so he just resonated with me in a way. And I think most of you, many of you listening, if you've ever heard Malcolm speak, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So today, again, it marks the day that he was killed. And I like to speak about him because not only the impact that he had on my life, but the way he transformed himself, the way he was powerful before he went to Mecca and after his journey, after his pilgrimage, he was exposed to new ideas, new information, and really to the reality that the human community is far greater than any particular race. And he was able to take all of his principles, all of his passion, and then find solidarity with people he had previously refused to have solidarity with. And so on February 21st, 1965, in Washington Heights, New York City, Malcolm was killed. But he lived such a fearless life that death was but a footnote in his story. And we will remember Malcolm for years to come. As much as people would try to vilify him, as much as people still try to make him seem as though he was a pariah, most Americans who know anything about Malcolm really sound like Ossie Davis when he gave the eulogy. He said, did you ever actually speak to Malcolm? Did you ever actually hear him talk? Did you ever see him connected to actual violence? Because if you ever spoke to Malcolm, you'll know why we must love him and remember him. This is Ossie Davis paraphrasing his eulogy for Malcolm X. But I want to play a couple of clips so that you can understand Malcolm a little better.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
In a time where and it's not even just then, but even now, in a time where, beauty standards are dictated to us by mainstream media. They tell us how tall we should be, or how skinny we should be, or how our nose should be shaped. And, you see it in our media now where images of beauty are based on European standards. But Malcolm saw through that a long time ago. And he was like, wait a minute, who told you weren't beautiful? And it goes back to this thing that I always say is that there's a difference between people who have been oppressed, people who have been told that they're nothing, people who have been told that they're ugly, that their hair is disgusting, that their skin color is disgusting. It's a difference between people who in the middle of that type of oppression lift up their fists and say, I'm black and I'm proud, or say black is beautiful, or say black power, because we're speaking from a position of powerlessness. And so we have to speak power into our existence. And Malcolm was first and foremost amongst anyone who saw through this attempt to marginalize us and to degrade us, to make us hate ourselves to the point where we wouldn't even stand up and fight for ourselves. And he did so fearlessly in the threat from the American government, in the face of the threat from the Nation of Islam, who later would turn on him. He still lived fearlessly.
Right now.
No, I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
And that's why Ossie Davis said that Malcolm was our living manhood, our living black manhood, because he could look death in the face and say, I have no fear whatsoever of anyone or anything. And unfortunately, February 21st, 1965, he was gunned down. And these are actually the words of Ossie Davis at the actual funeral of Malcolm X. And I want you to listen to what he said.
Here, at this final hour, in this quiet place, Harlem has come to bid farewell to one of its brightest hopes, extinguished now and gone from us forever. For Harlem is where he worked and where he struggled and fought, his home of homes, where his heart was and where his people are. And it is therefore most fitting that we meet once again in Harlem to share these last moments with him. For Harlem has ever been gracious to those who have loved her, have fought for her, and have defended her honor even to the death. It is not in the memory of man that this beleaguered, unfortunate, but nonetheless proud community has found a braver, more gallant young champion than this Afro-American who lies before us, unconquered still. Many will ask what Harlem finds to honor in this stormy, controversial, and bold young captain, and we will smile. And we will answer and say unto them, did you ever talk to Brother Malcolm? Did he ever touch you? Did you have him smile at you? Did you ever really listen to him? Did he ever do a mean thing? Was he ever himself associated with violence or any public disturbance? For if you did, you would know him. And if you knew him, you would know why we must honor him. Malcolm was our manhood, our living black manhood. That was his meaning to his people. And in honoring him, we honor the best in ourselves. And we will know him then for what he was and is, a prince, our black shining prince who didn't hesitate to die because he loved us so.
40 years old, gunned down in the prime of his life, fearless, unafraid, unshaken, unbowed. And he left us that example for everything that we fight for, everything that we face. We must be fearless, and we must be an example. And we must face this. We must face every iteration of oppression without any regard for ourselves, but to charge into the fight, into the battle, into the war. So fearlessly that the people we fight for look at us and realize that they have a champion fighting on their behalf. And we think about the stories that we talk about all the time, and we think about the people, the most marginalized, the people who do not have advocates, who do not have voices that are bold enough to run in fearlessly into the middle of a raging battle on their behalf. When I think about that, I think of people like Malcolm, and I think of how he is our example. And if he may not be yours, but he can be, and he is my example of how we must fight in these times that we live in. But enough me talking about him. I'll let him say it himself.
We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.